My name is Jennifer Monson. I'm a senior planner here with the City of St. Louis Park, and we have a proposed development at 3510 Beltline Boulevard. This is on the southwest corner of Beltline Boulevard and 35th Street. Roars is proposing a six-story mixed-use, mixed-income building with 177 residential units and approximately 4,000 square feet of ground floor commercial, and it is designed for residents age 55 plus. So tonight we have members of the development team and ESG architects here, and they will be sharing the proposal details with you and answering any questions you might have. So I am going to give the reins over. And also, if you do have questions, I think there's a little chat box if you're on a internet browser. If you click the chat box at the bottom of your screen, it'll pop up a chat on the right hand side of your screen. If you do have a question, feel free to type it in that chat box, or when we open for questions, we can unmute you and you can ask your questions verbally as well. So I think it's probably easiest if we wait to the end for questions, just to make sure we can get through the presentation, because some questions might be answered during that process. So with that, I will hand it off.
Thanks, Jennifer. So I can just kick us off here real quick. My name is Andy Bolig. I'm a developer with Roars. And we have Jackie Page on the line as well, who is not running the presentation. Christina is, so my apologies. And then Christine and Nathan with ESG, our architect on the project. So if you want to go to the next slide, Christine, I can just kind of introduce Roars a little bit real quick. So we're a local developer based in Minnetonka. We do about 5 to 6 projects in the Twin Cities each year, and then an additional 5 to 6, even 10 plus now projects across the nation. Primarily focusing on affordable housing and then market rate housing and 55 plus housing. So this will be our 4th 55 plus product, which is different than a true senior product, which we also do. 55 plus is a self-imposed age restriction. So if, for example, at any time the building wasn't leasing up, we are able to take off the age restriction and switch it to general occupancy. We've never done that, nor have I ever heard of any developer having to do that, but that is the program in place. It's just self-imposed. We also have our own property management firm called Core Living. So we like to be long-term stakeholders in the communities we're in. So we develop and manage it ourselves, and plan to hold on to the projects. We do not typically build and sell. We have once or twice when the market was right, but for the most part we stay on then as the manager long term. We can go to the next slide, please, Christine. The development teams, we've got ESG, and Christine will kind of be able to introduce her in just a second here, and then Kimley Horn's our civil engineer as well. Kimley has a lot of experience in the neighborhood in the Beltline area with the City of St. Louis Park. Here's just a few examples of past projects, and I think maybe we just kind of jump right into our project, Christine, just to not get held up too much on this. So I can just run through this slide real quick, Christine, then I'll turn it over to you. So we are proposing approximately 178 units. 10% of them are going to be affordable units, which comes with the PUD, and there's obviously spread throughout the building, evenly distributed among unit type and levels and that type of thing. There'll be 247 parking stalls and then 4,000 square feet of commercial space, which
I'm listening to the city council,
which
for one of our building 5's project.
Oh, isn't it? Yeah, so the project will, in terms of the commercial space and users, we have started floating it out there to a couple different people. Generally, the commercial market's a little slower right now, and I'd expect leasing traction once we're under construction more. But we could anticipate small businesses, potentially a restaurant or something like that, potentially a daycare. Right now, we do not have any definitive interest, but expect that to come as it leases up. Market rate, if not above market rate, amenities throughout, and the zoning is PUD, or we are proposing a PUD to accommodate all the different uses we're going forward with. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to you, Christine. I don't know if you want to kind of introduce the site location a little bit too, and how the building design came about from that.
Yeah, sure. So, good evening. I'm Christine Picard. I'm an architect and a partner at ESG. We've been working with Roars for quite some time now, and Andy in his former life prior to Roars. So we've had a long working relationship with this group, and we are very excited to be presenting the project that we are putting together at 3510 Beltline. I'm with my colleague, Nathan Cantley. I'm going to run through the site and the floor plans, and then Nathan is going to talk us through the exterior design and some of the sustainability features, and then we will open it up for any questions that you guys have. You guys, I'm sure, as members of the neighborhood know this site well, but just to kind of point it out, we've got Beltline wrapping the corner, or sorry, excuse me, we've got Beltline running on the southeast side of the site, and then we've got 35th coming in right here. This is the site of the newly proposed Opus project, so that's where that's coming up. We're kind of flanking that same intersection with a new development right here at the corner of 35th and Beltline with amazing views of Bass Lake. So we'll kind of show you how we're trying to take advantage of that. There's some smaller industrial buildings. We recognize that there's kind of a whole neighborhood association to the west of our site. And then there's some wetlands on the site. As we get into, I should mention that we're within a 4-minute walk to the newly being constructed Green Line. Excited about that. So we've been thinking a lot about connectivity and means of people accessing mass transit from our site. Pedestrian and bike connections are extremely important to this development. It's kind of a closer up view. I think we've just got some perspective views of the site to kind of help you place where exactly our site is. It's currently a somewhat underutilized site with a single story building on it. So this will be kind of a great new utilization of this site area. As we started looking at this site, we were really focused on creating active liner along Beltline and along West 35th Street. We couldn't help but really notice that there is kind of a nice natural amenity already built into this site with the wetland area. The wetland area actually goes well beyond the property, but we've got some nice, kind of trees and vegetation happening here. I would say some of the challenges that we've been facing in looking at the site are the floodplain that's coming along this south side. So we really had to be strategic about where we're building and how we need to be built up to kind of address that. And then we've got, kind of the constraints of wanting to preserve as much of the wetlands as we could. As we got to talking to the city, there was a real initiative to kind of create a connection from the west side, the neighboring properties up here, down to the Bass Lake amenities down here. And so we kind of gave that some thought. We were really thinking about how this side of the parcel could be maybe something for more public use, maybe a means of connecting the rest of the neighborhood to the amenities on the other side of Beltline. And just we're giving some thought to how circulation wants to work. And we're really encouraged to kind of think of this not as a two-sided building fronting the streets, but as kind of a three-sided building, taking into account the experience as people try to traverse our parcel from the west. So just kind of a general overview. We've got traffic on both sides. We've got some on-street parking on West 35th. Beltline is a much more major thoroughfare. We've got site access on Beltline. We've got a one-way public parking drive-through our building, which we'll see as we get into the plans. And we've got kind of a loop system for accessing the residential parking and coming out back onto 35th. So just kind of general circulation. We're locating our residential lobby more inboard so that we can take advantage of kind of the frontage on 35th and Beltline, activating that with that 4,000 square foot retail space. And then as part of our PUD, we are promoting live-work dwelling units on the 3 frontages of the building. proposed alleyway that will eventually come on the northeast side of the site. So we've dedicated the easement per the city requirements for that. Getting a little bit more into the site plan so you can kind of see that retail space. We've had to kind of build the building up on a plinth to address the floodplain. You can see kind of the lineage of where that floodplain is happening right here. So this portion of our building is stepped up a little bit to address the minimum floor elevation or buildable height of the square footage that's within that floodplain, and then it steps down a little bit to kind of reduce the height where you've got the public, right, sorry, excuse me, the private residential parking in these live work units facing Beltline and the Parkway. We're looking at developing kind of a system. We're really going to try to factor in as much both sustainability measures as we can, as well as amenities or features in this wetland park area. We've got walking paths, really just kind of thinking about this 55 plus population and giving them the opportunity to have, you know, outdoor walking exercise opportunities right on their own site, but then also creating that connection that we talked about from the west to Beltline for the rest of the public. We're looking into natural vegetation. We're looking into kind of adding trees and greenscape. And then we're also planning to use this site area for at-grade stormwater management solutions, so ponding. Again, the circulation is kind of happening as residents kind of come up and through and park in the residential parking back here. But we've created a service drive through our building that is flanked with public parking. This will be for the guests of the residents. This will be for future tenants that are coming for a leasing tour, and then also patrons of the retail space. We're planning to kind of design a really nice porte cochere drop-off area here. So that's happening internal to the site. Residential move-in is happening all through this loading area. So we've got kind of a covered, sheltered area for loading trucks. And then we've got kind of a back of house path for them to move in on the backside of the residential lobby. We're picturing really activating this lobby space with both kind of a front door coming off of that drop-off area or a convenience access for people that are getting picked up by, say, an Uber, rideshare, or family. And then we've also got a vestibule on the front side. Really just want to make sure that it's evident where the entrance to this building is from the street. We're looking at leasing functions in this lobby space, and then also some of the amenities. I think we're talking about a golf simulator, some co-working space. The lobby will be a very nice 2-story volume with a mezzanine where we're looking at options for like a library space, maybe a movie viewing amenity. We're just kind of up in the air on what that's going to be, but really trying to get a lot of eyes on this corner and kind of tie leasing and residential amenities together and activate kind of the ground floor at Beltline. Live work units will all be have their own mezzanine space, so they have an active ground floor. They're really kind of tailored with kind of a storefront design on the facade, which you'll see as Nathan gets into some of those renderings, an opportunity for somebody to kind of have front door access, maybe even sell something out of their live work space if they're interested in doing that. It's kind of designed to be incredibly flexible for people that work out of the same space that they dwell in. And then the retail component is on this side. Retail and trash functions will all be operating out of the trash room in the back. We've got kind of utilities facing that service alley on the north side of the site. And then we've got all walk-up units for these live work units on all 3 sides. I think that's pretty much everything for the ground floor. Again, a second level of parking, we are looking at opportunities to have bike parking throughout this building. We know that that's an important, critical amenity for this. Not much more to see here. You can kind of see the footprint of the 2-story live work spaces. We're working on what the footprint of the mezzanine component in each one of those is right now. And then as we get up to the first floor of residential dwelling, you'll just see double loaded corridors with an amenity space and then a large outdoor terrace. We are looking at maximizing the amount of occupancy that we can have on this amenity deck with features like a pool, a spa, a outdoor pickleball court, some garden lots for residents who are interested in gardening, fire pits, maybe an outdoor movie theater or pull down screen, just really programming that for all of the tenants. And then we've got the indoor amenity space, which will include a large fitness room, a group fitness room, an indoor sauna, some restroom facilities, and clubroom features. Units on this level will have rooftop walkout patios, and then in the space, the roof area that we're not developing for occupancy or with amenities, we are looking at green roof systems right now, maybe low mow or no mow vegetation or green trays, exploring the options there. A lot of good roof area. We oriented the terrace this direction so it could take advantage of kind of views of both the downtown, the development along Excelsior in St. Louis Park, as well as all of the vegetation and wetland area just to the south of this site. And then as we work our way up the building, you can see we've got stacking dwelling units. And then when we get up to the top floor, we took another approach of taking advantage of the downtown views on this top floor, as well as Bass Lake with a small sky lounge and outdoor terrace on the 6th floor. This allowed us to create kind of like a nice architectural feature that goes well and kind of elongates the corner right on that predominant intersection. Nathan, did I miss anything in the plans, or are you ready to kind of take over and show the exciting stuff?
Yeah, I think you covered it.
All right, great. I'll let you take over from here.
I'm Nathan Cantley. I'm one of the designers at ESG. And this first image is a perspective from Beltline 35th. And you can kind of see the Sky Lounge right above the retail in the corner. And this kind of highlights that elevated promenade that's along Beltline and 35th. We have kind of these two large masses that represent the retail and lobby at the corners. You can go to the next slide, Christine. We took what we see as like high quality residential materials for this building. So the main corners are cast stone, and then we have a brick masonry that's kind of the infill for these double height live workspaces. And then the main material for the upper portion is the kind of a cream colored stucco. It's a real, I think, natural palette. All right, Christine. This is a perspective towards the lobby entrance along Beltline. Again, this kind of just highlights that elevated promenade and really trying to activate Beltline as much as we can while building
Yeah,
up
we're
over
looking,
that.
our landscape plan calls for a lot of vegetation along what is now going to be the new bike lane for Beltline. So we're kind of excited about the city improvements there.
This is another view of the residential and kind of just shows that entryway to kind of the public parking. Kind of, we're trying to make it a very bright, kind of welcoming entrance. So doing something special in kind of this porte cochere area. This is a perspective on West 35th, showing kind of the walkout live work units. These are lowered. So these are just the lowered part of the podium that's not elevated. We have a few sustainable design features we can call out. We're going to be doing some solar panels on the roof, and then have a few electric vehicle charging stations, as well as building an infrastructure for future EV vehicle charging needs. And then we're also doing a lot of green roof features on the very large terrace that faces the wetland.
We're
Mhm.
working right now with the City of St. Louis Park. We just had a call with Jennifer and some of her colleagues to talk through kind of St. Louis Park's initiatives to move in the direction of, sustainable design. I think, are striving to achieve a number of checklists on the rating system for green enterprise green communities. And then we are going to meet the SB 2030 energy requirements for this project as well. And I think that's about it. I think we're ready to open it up for questions. Let me know if you want me to flip back to any of the plans or perspective views. And if not, we're ready for whatever you got.
Thanks, Christine, Andy, Nathan. I did mute everyone just to cut down on some background chatter as they were giving their presentations. There are a number of people on the phone, and I believe you're able to unmute yourself if you have any questions. Otherwise, feel free to drop it in the chat box. There's also a raise your hand feature if you want me to unmute you. We're happy to answer any questions.
Hi, Jennifer and ESG firm. Thank you very much for hosting this meeting. My name is Monica. I live in the neighborhood, and one of the main reasons I joined today was because I'm very interested to know what percentage of the trees and the space of the wetlands are you going to be keeping versus getting rid of?
Yeah, that's a great question. We don't have our landscape architect on the call, so I'll do the best that I can to answer this, and I can certainly circle up. We sent an arborist out to the site to evaluate everything that's out there, and as large and plush as some of those trees are, they're in very, very tough shape. So I'll just flip back to the plan and show you precisely what we're kind of attempting to do. There is a cluster of trees. Let me get back down to here. There is a large cluster of existing trees right in this area. So this site, this walking path was completely designed around preserving the trees that were in good shape. So we're saving everything that we can, and then we are also making up for it with the vegetation that's being added to this area and throughout the site. I don't know, Andy or Jackie, if you can elaborate any more on that.
Yeah, I'm just looking back at Jesse's most recent email, excuse me, our landscape architect, and we're going to be adding quite a few 4-inch trees as well, which are larger in place of some of the ones that we do have to get rid of because there's quite a few ash trees. So I
That's
think
good to know.
we'll be adding between, it looks like 78 and 120 new trees throughout the site.
And the city's natural resource coordinator or manager, he has a new title, has been out there and has taken a look at the existing trees that are proposed to come down and has verified that the ones that are proposed to come down should come down. And he's taken a very detailed look at the proposed landscape plan.
Thank you. I appreciate the answers.
Yeah, it was a good question,
Thank you.
Monica.
Hi, my name is Aaron. I have a question. I just want to make sure I'm unmuted and you can hear me.
Yep.
Great. Thanks for having this meeting. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about timing of the project, when you would plan on breaking ground and from that point to completion. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a good question. So our goal is to break ground this year with just beginning the grading and site excavation late November, most likely sometime in December. And then it'll probably be about March or April when we'll start getting precast to the site. And so I would say about 16 months from January, which would put us in about spring of 2022 for the opening of the project, if all goes according to plan.
And I would also note that we're still in the approval process of this plan. The Planning Commission will be holding a public hearing on September 1st, and then the request will go to City Council, I think on September 20th and October 4th.
So when you say excavation, that means that that building, you would hope to be able to demolish that building in November this year sometime, so we would start to see that type of change that soon. Is that correct?
Yep, that would be step one. So, November, December, like Jennifer said, I mean, if things shift a couple weeks or that type of thing, it could move a month or so, but that's the current goal.
Great. Thank you so much.
And I did mean spring of 2023 for completion. Thank you. Adding years is not a strong point in my life.
You guys are an easy group.
Any other questions, comments?
Any restaurant owners on the line looking to open a 4,000 square foot restaurant?
Yeah, I'll throw one out. How do you plan on heating the building?
Heating the building?
Mhm.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. We'll have high efficiency magic packs for all of it residential units. The commercial space, it generally will depend on the tenant, and then common areas will either utilize some form of the high efficiency magic pack or a central system.
Right. The magic pack, that's natural gas, right?
It is natural gas, yes.
Have you thought about geothermal or air source heat pumps at all?
We have considered those in other projects, including this one in the past. We're also getting electric magic, high efficiency magic packs, priced out. The geothermal is difficult, especially a site like this with just the, we can't really go below grade too much because of the water table and the condition of the soils. So that makes it difficult. And then the electric magic packs, I'd say we're actively considering because they're getting pretty close to being the same in terms of long-term sustainability and maintenance, and then upfront cost as a gas one. Christine, do you have anything to add to that?
No, Andy kind of hit it on the head. Geothermal would be very, very complicated and expensive for this particular site just because of the water table and the soil conditions and what we're dealing with the floodplain. In fact, that was a big driver for us to figure out how we could squeeze, above grade stormwater management solutions onto this site and still create, kind of a lush vegetated amenity park-like setting.
Great, thanks.
There are no other questions from residents. This is Councilmember Dumog. I typically just like to listen in these meetings. I don't know if I don't want to. Anybody else? Looks like there's a fair number of people on, so I wanted to allow others to have questions.
I tried to wait to the end for mine too.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask mine. So you have on-street parking along 35th. Remind me again, Jennifer, do we have any planned improvements on 35th? Since this is a historically industrial area, there's a lot of traffic, semi-traffic, and I was taking my young son to go to the post office and on his bike, and it can get a little dicey along 35th if you're on there. And I'm thinking through the existing use that is already in the neighborhood, and with now additional parking along 35th. Is any consideration to that, or Jennifer, do we have plans for that?
I believe there actually is some on-street parking along the south side of 35th Street already allowed today. We're actually not counting that parking as part of the parking counts for the zoning as part of this development. So they're meeting with some reductions because they are close to a future LRT station. They would meet the city's required parking requirements on site without taking account of those on-street spaces. To answer your question, I believe there is a planned mill and overlay of 35th Street over to Raleigh. I want to say 2025, 2026.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking about if you have visitors or you know,
Yes.
if the public parking is already taken and those that choose to go drive to this development, whether you're visiting or, you know, partaking in the retail.
And
I'm
that's
thinking about any cars
right.
getting sideswiped.
Right, and that's why we worked
yeah.
really closely with ROARS and ESG to make sure that there is loading zones inside the building, both for the residential move-ins, the commercial loading, mail trucks, UPS, Amazon vehicles, as well as car sharing. So that does not occur on 35th Street and definitely not on Beltline Boulevard. Want to make sure that all of that traffic is directed inward to the site.
Okay. And this question is like for the, I don't know that much about, you know, 55 plus units. I'm curious about the reasoning behind the co-working. My brain goes to, well, aren't they, most people retired? What is the co-working? Can you speak to other co-working spaces in your existing developments for those that are 55 plus?
No, that's a great question, and nice to meet you, council member. I have not, we have three 55 plus projects at Roars under construction. This will be our fourth. I've done a few at a previous firm that have stabilized. So it's interesting. Most of the projects, the average age of the residents ends up being in the very low 60s. One project, it was upper 50s for a while. So for the most part, it's generally around 50 to 60% of the residents are actually still working. So these are people who are not necessarily ready for that true senior care yet, but they're looking to downsize their life, you know, capitalize on the home sales market and just kind of rent and have an easier way of life without having to leave the city. So we do get a lot of people who are still employed. And the co-working space is, you know, more of a library with different kind of breakout areas and booths and that type of thing where people can escape their spouse or their grandkids and kind of go work and just have a quiet place or read a book or something in that regard.
Okay, thanks for that.
Watch
So,
it, Lynette. I'm 55.
I saw the
Put me out
smirk
the
and
pasture yet.
Councilmember Crafts, you know, and it had to be asked. So
That's fair.
And so, you know, as I take a look at this particular page here, so you know, it's basically 2 above grade. So your parking stall is above grade, and then you have 2 levels of, you know, kind of almost like 3 separate buildings. Are they all connected in the parking ramp? How do people get access to this?
Yeah, so this public parking is at its own elevation that ties directly to all the functions that it's serving. There's some kind of ramping happening if you did need to go garage to garage, but for the most part, this is kind of considered the public, and you drive in, you drive through. It's all at the same elevation. You've got access to get back into the building, to go from move into the building, to get into the lobby, to get picked up, you know, whatnot, into the retail space. It's all at the same plinth. And then the residential parking, everybody enters here, and then there's a ramp up to the 2nd floor.
Okay.
So all of the residential parking is secured and interconnected.
Okay. So it looks like there's 2 curb cuts on West 35th, and then Opus's site will have 2 curb cuts also on West 35th.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a couple new residents in this area. You know, Jennifer, is there any kind of consideration to now this is going to have a bit more traffic with all the residents coming and dumping out into 35th? I mean, I see that, you know, I think Opus is, I don't know if they're the means of egress is, if they're the main public or the main source of egress is on 35th, as opposed to here, it looks like you could do Beltline as well.
Correct. So Roars is all ingress and egress is all off 35th. This all ingress is off of Beltline Boulevard and all egress, all exiting is off of 35th. We
Okay.
looked at updating the traffic study, but because the Opus development had so little impact on this particular intersection and the intersections surrounding it, and just the demand at peak hours for a 55 plus building is not the same for a typical market rate anyone living there building.
Did you hear that, Larry? Okay.
We did not require an updated park or traffic study, but we don't have any concerns about traffic being able to function here.
Yeah.
The intersection that really will eventually need a stoplight is just to the north at Parkland and 35th or in Beltline, but this intersection we have no concerns about ever needing a traffic signal or anything here. And then so their alley, their access drive that's proposed as part of this development, it's going for a few years until redevelopment occurs immediately to the west. The alley's going to be slightly skewed from where the entrances and exits are because the Opus site is able to construct the alley where it needs to be. Because half of the alley is going to be constructed as part of this development, we have to wait until the parcel to the west redevelops to develop that western side of the alley. So it will just be like 6 feet off center for a period of time. But we don't anticipate any issues from
No
that.
straight lines, that's fine.
Right.
Okay, and I'm pleased and thank you, Monica, for bringing up the trees because I, you know, they're beautiful, but you know, we did have an emerald ash borer situation, I think, earlier this year that resulted in the removal of 80 trees. So, and I'm glad that, you know, you have a landscape architect and our arborist, you know, kind of looking at this, I don't know, call it southeast, whatever, it's not plumb 90 degrees, to see how we can kind of have some of that, because it is lovely to see some of the ducks and the geese and so forth over there. I'm curious, pickleball court. Is that a common amenity in your
Yes,
development?
they're so popular. People fight over them. You have to like implement a whole scheduling system. And then we also implement hours because otherwise they'd be used like all through the night and there's a little bit of noise with them. So we try to stop around 8 p.m. But it's like a huge thing right now, I guess. I had to go out and play it recently. It's a fun time. We can meet and play sometime. It'd be fun.
That's okay. But you know, we do have we have pickleball courts at the, you know, just down the block. So nice to know that there's another court that, you know, people will have to fight over.
Mhm.
Okay. And then your financing, are, you know, this is 10% affordable at 50% AMI. I'm assuming you're not going to go for tax credits. This is just a general financing.
Yep. So we are, yep, that's correct. We're not going for tax credits or TIF. We just are, you know, doing the 10%. I believe it is a requirement, Jennifer, with the PUD, but we tend to do it at most of our projects recently throughout the Twin Cities just because there is such a demand, obviously, and it's so underserved. But otherwise, it's just a loan and equity, and all of our equity are local investors like friends, family, individuals, that type of thing. So this project actually, just fun side fact, has already raised all the equity. It was the quickest raise we've ever had. Lots of strong interest in the market. People not even wanting to see the numbers, just hearing St. Louis Park and ready to write a $50,000 check. So it was super cool to see that.
No TIF. Okay.
Yeah, no
Interesting.
TIF.
And then, okay, so no TIF. All right. Good to know. Sorry, those were all I had. I don't know if anybody else had questions. Oh, sorry, one more. What rents are you quoting both on your market and affordable?
So affordable are set at max, 50% AMI rents. So I think like a 2-bedroom is probably about $1,078 if I remember correctly without looking, and 1-bedroom's a little bit under 1,000. And then in terms of the rents are a little skewed, so it's going to be a little lower per square foot because they're larger units and 55 plus, but like a 1-bedroom I would assume will end up being around 14 to 1,600 or somewhere in that neighborhood. Very comparable to all of the existing projects in St. Louis Park, like in West End or other projects going in around Beltline. So
Thanks.
Mhm.
Any other questions? If you don't think of any tonight, if you did get a flyer in the mail, we sent flyers out to everyone within 500 feet of the development. I believe Andy's contact information is on there. I've also put my email in the chat box, as well as the link to this project's webpage on the city's website, where we have contact information, plans. We'll post all of the upcoming meetings and public process that are will be happening in the next few months, weeks for this site. And just again, the developer is requesting a preliminary and final plat and a preliminary and final planned unit development, though both of those applications will go before the Planning Commission for a public hearing on September 1st.
Thank you all. Appreciate meeting you, council members, and the comments that came from this group.
Great.
Have a good night.
Thank
Great,
you.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.